discover China. In the spring of 1819, 15-year-old Wang Dingwei, a resident of Hong Village in Huizhou, Anhui Province, made a life-altering decision. After bidding his parents and young wife farewell, he set out to seek his fortunes, with only a small bag in hand and a little money in his pockets. To Wang, the future was uncertain. His wife's future held within endless waiting. In Huizhou of those times, many such young men made the same decision as Wang did. When a boy turned 15, he had to set out and leave home. With little experience or knowledge about the world that lay ahead, why did they choose this unknown road? Over 30 years later, in 1850, a successful Wang Dingwei returned to his hometown. Now a respectable and wealthy businessman, he made another momentous decision to build a new home. The home he built stands to this day in the village. It is called Chengzhi Hall, but the people in the village dubbed it Little Forbidden City. Covering an area of 2,100 square meters with a floor area of 3,000 square meters. The Chengzhi Hall is made entirely of wood. It has 136 wooden pillars, 9 courtyards, and 60 rooms. It is said that the cost of construction was exorbitant, taking years to complete. The wood carvings alone took 20 craftsmen 4 years to finish. Was Wang's success enough to fund this grand hall? According to the Wang family tree, he was a famous Qing dynasty merchant. Over a few decades, he had amassed a fortune. The Chengzhi Hall was evidence of his success. Ancient China had a strict hierarchy in place. In those days, it was believed that an official post was the best way to live in society. Being an official meant power and distinction. China of those days was a mostly agrarian society. In the absence of land, people sought vocations such as carpentry or blacksmithing. Merchants were at the bottom of Chinese hierarchy, possessing no rights, land, or skills. Under such circumstances, why did Wang Dingwei choose to become a merchant? Hong Village is located in the mountains of southern Anhui Province. Surrounded by mountains, it had little farmlands. Due to the natural limitations and geography of the region, agriculture was fairly underdeveloped. Farmers in Huizhou could maintain only minimal living standards. Unlike farming, being a merchant was a quick way to getting rich. This greatly influenced Wang's decision. Initially, Wang had no capital, no experience, and no connections. He didn't know where to start. Innately clever, Wang turned Huizhou's agricultural disadvantages into his advantage. Among Huizhou's mountains are abundant natural resources, such as traditional Chinese medicine herbs. Wang Dinggui bought some of the local herbs for a low price and then sold them to outsiders, netting him his first profit. Wang's mercantile days had begun. Many other Huizhou merchants began their business with local specialties. Possessing capital, some held their course, while others followed their vision. Salt, an indispensable ingredient of human life. In China's early days, it was used primarily for seasoning. With the development of human society, salt gained much importance. It soon earned titles such as the Food General and the Treasure of the State. As a result, profits from the salt trade began to swell. The astute Huizhou merchants were poised to reap the benefits. According to historic accounts, during the Ming Dynasty, Huizhou merchants monopolized the Chinese salt industry. In order to ensure sufficient supplies to defensive forces in the north, the government lifted several trade policies. Salt used to be under the control of the government, with little or no benefits to the mercantile community. The new rule stipulated merchants could provide army supplies in exchange for the right to sell salt. This potential windfall attracted many merchants, the Huizhou merchants among them. Was born during the Qing Dynasty, a prosperous era for the Huizhou salt industry. With perfect timing, Wang gradually turned his focus from the tea business to the salt industry. Utilizing the experience he gained and the mentorship of other merchants, Wang's business grew larger and larger. Weary and wealthy, he finally retired. Ever the businessman, however, the first thing on his mind upon his return was building a house befitting his status. Several years later, his house was complete, combining the wisdom and skill of many craftsmen. Stepping into the Changzhi Hall, the wealth and affluence are immediately noticeable. The famous wood, brick, bamboo, and stone carvings are well preserved. The Wang family household was the realization of the once poor 15-year-old dream. But the story did not end with Wang Dingwei. A powerful person is exposed to criticism, as were the merchants. Many Huizhou salt merchants amassed great fortunes, earning them the envy of their peers. Many sought to hinder and disrupt their business. The biggest obstacle was the government, the same government who opened the door for the merchants' monopolization of the salt industry. The salt monopoly of the Ming and Qing dynasties was a system where salt merchants contracted the transportation and selling of salt, which were government regulated. The government did so not only to stabilize military transportation, but to gain stable revenues. With the increase in salt profits, the government continually raised the tax on salt. During a large-scale tax revision, many merchants' profits were shrinking and went bankrupt. However, Wang Dingwei weathered this storm and even increased his profits, as did many other Huizhou merchants. Was their monopolization of the salt trade a mere coincidence? In business, there are no coincidences. The success of the Huizhou merchants had something to do with their lineage. Since ancient times, Huizhou had been a neutral zone. Additionally, its beautiful sceneries attracted officials and nobles who wished to escape wars. They put great importance on education. The commonly held notion, to be a scholar is to be the top of society, was deeply entrenched in their minds. Although they didn't stand a chance at becoming officials, many Huizhou merchants received their education from private schools. They were ardent Confucians, law-abiding, and always willing to help others. They built schools in Huizhou to pass down Confucianism to their descendants. Growing up in such an atmosphere, the Huizhou merchants dared to break traditional dogmas while conducting business. Many people compared Huizhou merchants to camels. Camels were the main force in the desert, regal, reliable, and diligent. Their persistence and penchant for conducting business were a rarity in Chinese commercial history. Many of them spent their entire lives on business trips, Unhindered by difficulties and obstacles, their innate sense for business and steadfast enthusiasm earned them unique skills, passed down for generations. Their sense of ethics brought them stable customers. During the salt crisis, the loyalty of their customers was the main reason for Huizhou merchants like Wang Dinggui's success. But it was not enough. In the world of business, not all good people can yield good results. There was another important reason why Huizhou merchants had become so successful. In the educational atmosphere of Huizhou, the first choice was always an attempt at becoming a government official. Officials from Huizhou formed close ties with Huizhou merchants. These powerful relationships contributed to the merchants' monopoly of the salt production and markets. In return, the merchants paid off those officials. Some merchants even bought official titles to further stabilize their grip. As the relationship between Huizhou merchants and the government grew closer, the markets were stable and the income was steady. The Huizhou merchants' goal was to make a profit in any way possible, adapting to environmental changes and adjusting to influential policy shifts. Like most Huizhou merchants, building a house was Wang Dinggui's top priority. Seen from afar, the ancient picturesque village houses with their white walls, black tiles, and horsehead walls seamlessly integrated with high brims, curved paths, and ancient pavilions make up the basic elements of Hui-style buildings. Their grand scales and harmonious composition all exude wealth, culminating in the brick, wood, and stone carvings decorating the doors, windows, and pillars. It was no surprise that Wang's descendants call it the Little Forbidden City. However, the Huizhou merchants were still seeking affirmation. They bought nearby farmlands and orchards, hiring peasants to tend for them. For the ancient Chinese, farmlands were a symbol of wealth. Wang Dingwei was rich and famous. Like most merchants, he bought farmlands and hired peasants to work for him. Perhaps he was finally satisfied, realizing his dreams of prosperity for his family. Starting out with early years of hardships, Wang finally found his success. Throughout Chinese history, the earth is the root of all wealth. Agriculture and farming rank second only to the vocation of a government official. After accumulating their wealth, the Huizhou merchants maintained their fundamental Chinese traditions as they still revered and depended on the earth. They returned to their hometowns to invest their fortunes. This was considered the ultimate symbol of their success.